Hello everyone, this is Roxas1359. Welcome to the final episode of Ratchet Clank Future, A Crack in Time. Last time we went over the changes in challenge mode, doing all the side content that was left in the game after you end up defeating the final boss of the game, and after we ended up obtaining the final gold bolt, as well as defeated Flint Vorsalon for the final time. Now, since I'm in challenge mode, I'd have to fight Vorsalon again if I want to access the Insomniac Museum via the Corvus sector. I ain't doing that. You thought Lord Vorsalon was hard on, hard mode? Challenge mode, he does a ridiculous amount of damage, and even with the weapons being at their VX level, it still doesn't do enough damage to really make Lord Vorsalon a lot easier. So, yeah, make sure you fight Vorsalon before going into challenge mode. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. So, enough dilly-dallying. It's time we head off to what is probably the largest and most expansive Insomniac Museum in the entire game since Ratchet Clank 2 and Ratchet Clank 3. I would honestly say this is probably the largest Insomniac Museum in general. And it's where we will get our last trophy of the game, and thus unlock the Platinum Trophy. So, let's go to the Insomniac Museum. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Insomniac Museum. So, why don't we see some info and Insomniac for visiting the Insomniac Museum and the Lombax Triumphant, the Platinum Trophy for Ratchet Clank Future, A Crack in Time. Yep, I wanted to save the Platinum Trophy for, the Insomniac Museum, so I didn't want the last trophy to be the one that plays during the cutscene that you can't really do anything. So, let's get the info. So, welcome, weary space traveler, to the fabled Insomniac Museum. Come inside, kick off your hover boots, and feast your eyes upon all that makes up the Ratchet universe. Lost levels, forgotten enemies, tantalizing videos. It's all here in one place, ready to fuse your synapses into a tangled mess of smoldering goo. Ooh, a goo gun, you say? So, if you want to leave the Insomniac Museum at any time, simply go to these great clock panels right here, and you can exit the Insomniac Museum at any time. So, why don't we head on over this way to the men's room. Nothing but a giant cat photo that shoots laser beams. And here, the ladies' room, where you will be under constant vigilance. That's not creepy in the slightest. So yes, this place is massive. In fact, if you bring up the map of this place, you're actually inside the Great Clock. So yeah, no real map to this place. Ah, the cubicles. Gameplay, huh? Well. Looky here. Level design. There are core principles behind every level design in Ratchet & Clank. An emphasis on fun, not realism or simulation. Worlds are highly saturated with color, a sense of exploration, adventure, and wonder. Fun cartoon violence combat, non-realistic. The key to successful level design is the interweaving of gameplay mechanics and grounding the player in the fiction of the world. As designers, we must seek to create a perfect synergy between the two. And with A Crack in Time, and honestly with most of the Ratchet & Clank series, I would say that Insomniac really have, done just that. I will say this, though, about Ratchet & Clank Future, A Crack in Time, because I never really gave my thoughts on this game during the credits. This is my favorite Ratchet & Clank game. Going back to it again has made me realize, yes, this is definitely my favorite Ratchet & Clank game of the series. FX. Heh, I get it. And the reason for that is because the game really is just a lot of fun to play. I mean, I still love Ratchet and Clank 3, so it depends on which part of the day I'm in. Because sometimes, you know, I'm more of a Ratchet and Clank 3 person. Sometimes I'm a Ratchet and Clank Future or Crack in Time person. But overall, grab this right here, by the way. You're going to need this for later. Overall, A Crack in Time, just the design of it, the scope, I like the story. I love the weapons, even though a lot of them return later in the series, which annoys me. And I love the scope of this game. It feels like you're in a large universe. But why don't we talk more about this info? Gameplay philosophy. In this game, we will consider the following. Strong primary gameplay in the form of multiple missions and goals that emphasize exploration in addition to platforming and combat. Integrating the story and gameplay to provide a supporting fiction for the reuse space and making the environments feel more meaningful. Compelling secondary gameplay in the form of optional missions, secrets, and rewards that take Ratchet to the corners of each map. Layouts that allows, where possible, Ratchet to tackle objectives in any order and from multiple different angles, which is something this game excelled at. This game really did allow for people to, you know, go to any world in order. I mean, I could have gone straight to, what is it called? I could have gone straight to Planet Lumos and Krell Canyon instead of going to the Agorian Battleplex, but I decided to go to the Agorian Battleplex instead. I decided to do side quests instead of jumping to each new sector. Here we have the Leviathan in the background, back from Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction and Quest for Booty. But what is this? Design theory. Fundamentally, a Ratchet level can be thought of as an exploration of a sci-fi world that is densely packed with a variety of fun interactions and mechanic uses. These activities themselves are separated out into what we refer to as setups, each its own micro story of things conspiring to obstruct Ratchet's progress before they are overcome by the player. These obstacles can be things such as enemies trying to defeat Ratchet, navigational problems, or simple puzzles that must be solved. That is one thing I will say this game kind of was weak at, was puzzles for Ratchet. Clank had the majority of the puzzles, and that's perfectly fine for Clank to have the puzzles, but I would have liked for Ratchet to have more puzzles, like what was inside the Valkyrie Citadel. I would have liked that more. But each of these setups should be treated as its own little micro game that should be interesting, fun, and provide the right amount of difficulty and challenge. They should vary the pacing, dangers involved, and what skills and techniques are needed to successfully overcome them. Cool. I'm glad that I went to this room first because this kind of like allows me to concisely go through my thoughts. I didn't read this one, so... Setup design. Enjoyable setups alone are not enough, and good use of the environment is necessary to sell the world as a whole. In order for this to happen, the designer must have good understanding of what the world is and how it functions. This means investigating the world to learn about its ecology and architecture. The environment should increase the fictional values of the product and make the player want to find out more about the universe. In terms of pure gameplay, it should provide obstacles and scenery that fit naturally and complement the mechanics. It is also critical to involve representatives from design, art, and programming during the process. This enables the designer to bounce ideas off of peers, to gain perspectives of other disciplines, and to understand their wants and needs, which this game did pretty well at. So that's this room. You're going to want to come into this room primarily for the nectar because there is that ivy. I think it's over this way. No. Here? Where's the tetramite nest? There's tetramites in here and there's some ivy. Facilities. Whoa. Huh, one of the X platforms. I love the music of the Insomniac Museum, too. It's really good. Yeah, let's jump over this. Now that's for later in the Insomniac Museum. I also love that the design for the Insomniac Museum that they went for in this game was the burn room. Wait a minute. I don't trust this. I like that they went with Clank's like subconscious with a mix of the Great Clock for this. Like aesthetically, this is like the most pleasing of the Insomniac museums. Even if it is a little bit densely like spread apart. Ah, we've got more things to read. Perfect. This is probably going to be a episode where we're just rambling on, going through everything. Okay, we got art. This is actually what I want to do. So, genre consistency. Conceptually, the forms that we use can be from all different genres and time periods, but they should have definitive reasons why they draw from a particular era or culture. If a character is a cowboy, then the vehicle or creature he rides would most likely draw from that same era. But if he were in a futuristic spaceport, we might want to have the vehicle have some elements of the surroundings if we want to imply he's from that era. Yeah, consistency is... Ah, here's the picture I missed. Well, the thing. Okay, I need to find the termites. Where's the tetramites? Because that's where I need to lead them. I want to get into that room. There's Nagorian. Oh man, where is Tetramite Nest? No, I don't think... Oh, there's a teleporter back there. Right. I had forgotten what was in that room. This leads to the outside. I think this is just like generic platform testing area. So... You know what? This soundtrack feels a lot like something that Stuart Copeland would do. Is that the one I'm looking for? Yeah, that one's all the silhouettes of the characters. So let's read this. Silhouettes. With every design, whether it's a gun, spaceship, or NPC character, the main focus should always be the silhouette read. If a character works from a distance and remains iconic, then the character has a good chance of being a successful design. Iconic silhouettes are memorable, in which a stylized platformer is very important. So inside this one, we've got Quark, Ratchet, and Clank, the smuggler, the plumber, aka God, Rusty Pete. We've got Talwyn, Kronk, Zephyr, the Zoni, and for some odd reason in silhouettes, we have the enemies from Ratchet Clank Drophids. That's it. Yeah, they're not really that memorable, so it kind of goes against the design philosophy right there. Right now, where's the one that I'm really looking for? Where they talk about the game for specifically Ratchet & Clank Future of Crack in Time. Is it in here? See, we got plants right here. We should have... Ah! Remember this from the Valkyrie's Citadel? What is this? Building stuff that works. Sort of. When it comes to showing functionality, many of the most successful joints and articulation systems come from actual machinery. This allows the exaggerated and outlandish designs to be grounded and provides a trace of plausibility. This helps the player suspend disbelief and remain immersed, and plausible functionality often leads to, yeah right, or that could never happen, even though they just flew a spaceship through the solar system to get to that enemy segment. Interesting. Still looking for that Tetramite nest. I think this was supposed to be the hypersonic brainwave scrambler. Yeah, because this looks like it was what it was supposed to be. Retro and Deco. Retro appliances and Art Deco furniture has the clean line with visual functionality featured in almost every Ratchet & Clank character asset. The main reason that these forms lend themselves well to the franchise are large surface areas that are complemented by the small clusters of detail. In most of the cases, it would be small clusters of tech, but this rule also applies to organic forms like creatures and, well, more creatures. That honestly looks like the hypersonic brainwave scrambler. Where's that Tetramite nest? Roxas in his search for the Tetramite nest. Okay, let's jump over this. Right, we got these platforms, so let's look for info. Rigging. Rigging is the process of adding joints to an object and setting it up for one to use for one of our gameplay classes. Classes determine how an object behaves in the game. We have an enemy classes, destructible classes, and many more. One type of class is a wrench grapple platform. By rigging up joints in a specific way, and using this class, we can create a platform that Ratchet can move along in a path in 3 dimensions and so forth. So we have these. Which is pretty cool. Even though those, whoa, that's the destruction class. Notice how the objects still like behave with the physics too. Wow, that kind of went everywhere. Oh man, I made a mess in this. I made a mess in the museum. Oh man, I made a mess inside the Q&A. Oh, Q&A. Yes. A farewell to crouching. Ratchet's crouch maneuver has been consistent throughout the series. With the new wrench, tether, and hoverboot gameplay, it seemed like crouch was taking up too much real estate on the controller. Ratchet really isn't the type to hide behind cover and pop out to take shots at his foes, unless I am at control. He's more likely to jump into the battlefield with guns blazing. As an alternative to the crouch, we have the new wrench-ready position to show the player that they are winding their wrench to throw or a kinetic tether move. Downside, no more squatting on felled enemies. That is true. See, I'm still looking for that Tetramite nest. Because you need the nectar for it, and I'm not, like, they wouldn't have the ivy if the Tetramite nest wasn't around here. Support. Alright. There's a little Dr. Nefarious figure right here. Cute. Oh, it walks! Can I hit it? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that it walked. It's been years since I've been here. Nano Ratchet. For a while, we toyed with the idea of a mini Ratchet device that would let the player investigate small areas. In the end, we decided it was more of a one-off gimmick that would be more important to create gadgets that could be used from many places. Which is good. I mean, the swing shot's always been good. I'm glad they got rid of the hacking minigames because I was never a fan of those in the Ratchet & Clank games, especially the Infiltrator and the Key Passer, or whatever it was in Ratchet & Clank 1. I've got to grind on these. Animation. No, nothing right here. Which means one of these has a info section for me. There's the Agorian. Hard at work. Makes a little My Blaster runs hot noises. It's adorable. I love the concept art of Ratchet & Clank Future a crack in time. Like, this right here alone, that's the style. I would love a Ratchet & Clank game in the style like this of the, like, weapon cutscenes. Like, artistically, I would love it. But upgradable armor. When you can buy and wear any type of armor before a pre-rendered cutscene, we have to render a different version for each type of armor, or that cutscene won't match what he's wearing when you go back into the game. If you play previous Ratchet games, you may notice Ratchet does not appear in any of the pre-rendered cutscenes. In-game cutscenes work because we can do a check on whether the armor you've bought and display it in the scene. In this game, we wanted our pre-rendered cinematics to help tell a story and make it more personal. Our solution was to give Ratchet special armor that he could deactivate before a pre-rendered cutscene. This allows you to upgrade your armor and still see Ratchet's sensitive side up close and personal, which is a thing I really commend them for, because in the past Ratchet & Clank games, whenever you had the ultimate armor like I'm wearing, Ratchet would appear in the cutscenes with this armor, and you could never see his face. The only way around it was to go into the pause menu, you do your separate, like, you know, skins, which worked somewhat, because until Ratchet & Clank Future A Crack in Time, we didn't have the skins have, you know, different lip syncing. There is only one costume that doesn't have lip syncing in this game, and that is the Dan Johnson one, which is kind of a shame, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. May you rest in peace, Dan. And like, other than that, the rest of the cutscenes would show Ratchet with full lip syncing if you use the Alistair Azimuth one, if you use the Dr. Nefarious one, because the Dr. Nefarious one was actually inside the game, and so on and so forth, which is cool. And the fact that they added the upgradable armor like this is pretty cool. Server room. It's nothing but servers. Quark conference room. Ah, so this is why they did the conference with Quark. Still looking for that Tetramite nest. Right. Here we have the nanotech boxes. Dimension crate. Like other type of crates, the dimension crate is triggered by damage being inflicted upon it. Once damaged, the crate implodes and explodes into a frame large enough for Ratchet to walk through. The inner part of the frame fills with a portal to a bonus dimension, which Ratchet can see a preview image of. Stepping into the portal will warp Ratchet to a randomly generated bonus challenge. Completing or failing the challenge warps the player back to the portal entrance. If the player succeeds, the portal implodes. If they fail, they can jump back in and try again. Interesting, so that must have been something that they wanted to try. And it looks like ×3 box crates in nanotech. Interesting. We didn't have... Is that nerve toxin? That is nerve toxin. This is nerve toxin. Interesting type of crate usage. So what is this? The dice crate. The dice crate would cycle between ammo, bolts, health, no reward, and explosive states. And apparently deadly neurotoxins. If the player timed it right, they could get whatever they needed most by the time when they stroked the appropriate icon flashed up. Unfortunately, there were a lot of minor polish issues to address, and the players couldn't really figure out what the symbols meant. It was relatively low-cost interaction. You would only get a few bolts, a little health, or took a little damage, and ultimately we decided to cut it instead. Yeah, I think that's probably for the best, honestly. Interesting. What do we have here? Are these supposed to be the different Drophids? Extinct enemy. These creatures were a moon-specific race of squishy brain organisms in powered suits. They were going to use the Dropid models from Tools of Destruction as a base. They would communicate telepathically whether Ratchet approached them, or use telekinetic waves to pull them in an attack, similar to the Thrashers in the area. Our character team was overbooked, and we decided to go with our existing Nefarious, Agorian, and Feral enemies instead. Interesting. What is this? This looks like something from Mega Man Legends. Time Cleaners. Time Cleaners are natural denizens of the Great Clock. They were created by Orvis to be used as temporal energy eaters. You may have heard him refer to them during his recorded message with Sigmund. While incapable of doing major time reconstruction, they are, unfortunately for Clank, able to devour and digest small temporal anomalies such as Clank's recorded selves and his time bombs in their non-aggressive state. Time Cleaners are small, cute, and playful creatures. However, when alerted to the presence of an edible time anomaly, they will swell up and eat to a vicious eating machine. Huh. So these were supposed to replace the Terratropes. That's interesting. I would have preferred that, actually. Is that you, Tesla Barrier? I missed you! The Astrolabe, or Astrolab. The Astrolab channels time energy ribbons through the major components of the Great Clock. It forms a large centerpiece in the middle of the Great Clock with several large time ribbons extending from it to the buildings along the play areas. When we re-enter the Great Clock after Clank's awakening, the Astrolab is broken, spinning oddly, smoking, and with broken time ribbons. When we return to the after Clank repairs parts of the facility, it is fixed, with the time ribbons attached. Interesting. So pretty much, this is the center of the clock. There's the Terratrope nest. Okay. Tesla Barrier? Grav-sphere uses. When equipping the Grav-sphere, Ratchet is enveloped in a sphere of energy made of hexagonal tiles. The default state of the sphere is lightweight, and Ratchet's jump height is increased due to his light gravity. In low gravity mode, Ratchet can glide farther, jump higher, and travel on objects that normally could not carry his weight. So a scrapped concept for a gadget. Here is the gadget right here. And here is what it looks like. Right? Info. So long, Grav-sphere. The Grav-sphere was a great idea, but the work it would have required to take it up to the Insomniac standards would have taken away from other gadgets and used more frequently throughout the game, like the hover boots. Once they were in and working properly, it became clear we wouldn't be able to support two alternative modes of travel that you can activate anywhere, and so the Grav-sphere went the way of the Cragmite. How sad. What is this? Is this a prototype constructor weapon? Babblehorn. The Babblehorn was a gadget used to hack through doorways by communicating with nefarious troopers. Oh god. Hacking. Yay! We also wanted the player to talk to some of them with patterns of flashing lights. So like the talking with the enemies from the Tyrannoids. That was the name. Talking with the Tyrannoids, they're the Tyra guys. When we reached the implementation stage, we realized how much design work would go into creating all of these sequences, since it was really boiled down to a timing-based minigame without the humor of the Pirate Hollow guys and Tools of Destruction. We ultimately decided it wasn't worth it. And thank God for that. So this is what they would have looked like for the terminals. Looks like we got a bird gun. Well, bird glove. Phoenix Launcher. The Phoenix Launcher was based on the Predator missiles from Tools of Destruction. Ratchet locks onto enemies, and these fiery birds of prey would be released from the glove, circling around Ratchet's head. So like the Quacko Ray when you get the Demon Duck. When Ratchet fires, all the Phoenixes would descend on their targets in a fiery explosion. While this weapon looked phenomenal on paper, it ended up not being a player favorite. It took long for the Phoenixes to get into position, and from a gameplay perspective, they were exactly the same as the Predator missiles. Hence, the decision was made to donate it to the museum and focus on polishing our other weapons. Is that Ratchet with real guns? That's Ratchet with real guns. I don't know how I feel about this. Shotgun Chuck. The Shotgun Chuck was a submission to the My Blaster Runs Hot Weapon Design Contest. While it didn't win the contest, it did win the heart of Thom, one of our character artists. This is a quick version he whipped up just for kicks. So I have to explain. There was a contest where people were able to design a weapon for Ratchet and Clank, Future: A Crack in Time. The one that actually won was the Spiral of Death. And there were a lot of submissions, if I remember correctly, to this. So it's cool that another one of them got designed and put in here. So here we have the blades, the razor blades from Ratchet and Clank Future: Tools of Destruction. Razor Talons. The Razor Talons were energy blades designed to cut through enemies in close quarters. They were based on the Razor Claws from Tools of Destruction, but as they were nearing the end of production, we lacked the time to add all the cool attacks necessary to make the weapon fun. Therefore, we made a tough decision to cut the talons and focus more on our ranged arsenal, which is fine. Right, we got a Tetramite nest. I think it's time we awaken the beasts. Agorians. Warrior arm blades. Flame shot. Grenadier. Oh, this is a mini game. That's right. Battle cap. Spikes. Plates. None. Golden shoulder. Flame shot. Hunter helmet. Plate. Spikes. Ring. Strap. Golden sash of fortitude. This is cool. It's basically just fighting nefarious troopers. See, again, I've not been inside this museum for God knows how long. So a lot of this stuff I don't remember. Alright, so we need the Tetramite nest. And that's not the Tetramite nest. I just realized that's the thing for the minigame. Well done. Thought I had finally found the Tetramite nest. Oh, I think here's actually where I want to go. Yes, this is going to be a very long episode. I should have mentioned this before I started. Finance. All right. The first hypersonic brainwave scrambler. I knew that was in here. The original version of the hypersonic brainwave scrambler was similar and more reminiscent to a certain pesky droid from another galaxy far, far away. The HBS was so destructive to the Great Clock that we needed to beef it up to a larger shape. This way it could smash through walls and be easier to identify from a distance. Huh, so that's the old hypersonic brainwave scrambler. Interesting. Okay, nothing in here. But here is where the Leviathan model is that is flying around. Community. Stellar Leviathan. The Stellar Leviathan was the ultimate evolution of the Leviathan from Tools of Destruction. These spacefaring creatures could travel in packs like sharks in Circulaphelion, using a telekinetic tractor beam to pull it in and chomp down on it with its massive bite. We could not get the animation system for the Leviathan going again. He used a procedural animation that undulated his body in Tools of Destruction. We needed the time to get the core space combat working and therefore had to cut him. But he lives on inside the Insomniac Museum. That's pretty cool. Human resources. It's empty. Ted's office. Ted being Ted Price. Here is a Ratchet's model from Ratchet & Clank 3, it looks like. Classic Ratchet. The Ratchet & Clank 1 through 3 version of Ratchet had 6,912 polygons. His head and hands are a bit larger, which makes him look a little younger. Hence why he's got a normal sized hands and a lot smaller head now. Because Ratchet actually does age in the Ratchet & Clank universe. He's, like, by the future series, I think he's in his 20s. Ooh, a nefarious space fleet that we ended up destroying with the hypersonic brainwave scrambler with the hypernova defense laser. So, Nefarious Carrier. And the Nefarious Carrier is a large ship that launches waves of fighters and bombers to defend an objective. They can be docked with smaller ships to put up shields for their central dome, which acts as a weak point and a large beam weapon. When the dome is shattered, the ship's brain is revealed and swarms of small enemies will emerge, encircling the carrier and defending it from aphelion. In general, our large capital ship gameplay did not pan out well as we'd hoped, and the destroyers were converted to Valkyrie boss ships. There were too many issues with attacking a static object in space. Players were constantly ramming into it, getting into position for a run, or struggling to fire at it in a limited amount of time. Interesting. So these were originally going to be the main things that we would attack, but were changed to the Valkyrie ships. Core. Is that Clank? Lombaxes don't swim. We originally planned to support Ratchet swimming as we have in other titles, but in the end we decided to focus more on the faster-paced running and gun gameplay. Also, our new water is very cool looking on the surface, but we haven't dedicated that time to get underwater to look much to match the surface quality, which explains why there's no swimming in Ratchet and Clank Future or Cracking Time. When I hit it. Oh, this is the surface from the Great Clock, from Clank's subconscious. Alright. Which means we've got a thing right here. Look at it. Physics attachments. Our tech department gave us a new tool, the ability to attach objects with physics to each other. The result is more organic than our previous tools, which had us creating objects with attachments built in. We also have more control on how these objects break. That's cool. I'm still looking for that darn thing. There's a teleporter. Teleport! Ah, one of the moon surfaces. Okay, I want info. The info hitboxes are a little bit... Come on, info. There we go. Teleporter moon. This is an early design for the teleporter moon. The basic concept was litter the moon with teleporters and focus the player to find the correct path in order to get the reward at the end. Before this design was implemented, there was already concern about the ability to orient yourself and find your way across the moons, and this design made that flaw even more apparent. Now we had a moon where you didn't know where you were, where you've been, or where you're supposed to go, and there's practically no visual indicators to help you out. After watching multiple people run around in circles, it became painfully obvious that having multiple paths just led to frustration and confusion, so we decided to cut down the paths to focus more on the gameplay aspect of the moon. Interesting. Unfortunately, I can't bring the map there, so I'm gonna teleport. We're not gonna go through that, I just want to read the stuff to everyone. I want to find the Tetramite nest. There's also a part of this place I've not found yet. Hello? What is this? It's like a tank. Let's teleport. Get some... Return to the Insomniac Museum. No thanks. What is this? I wish to have info. Teleporter floors. The Nefarious space station originally had a set of puzzles based around a security grid. If the player threw a time bomb, they would be able to navigate a path of panels on the other side. In our focus test, lots of people were trying to jump over the panels, which wouldn't work, or repeatedly take the dead-end paths without watching where it went. If they made a wrong move, the puzzle would send them back to the beginning of the puzzle. This caused many players to throw their controllers at us and shout some horrible things we won't mention here. A difficulty in communicating the rules of this puzzle is in a reasonable amount of time, as well as the numerous head injuries received as a result of throwing controllers, convinced us to cut this puzzle. See, this is interesting, the fact that we were going to have multiple different types of puzzles for this game, but holy cow, I'm 40 minutes in. Oh my god, I lose track of time in this place. This is what I mean, the scope of things. Very, very large. Very large place. We're not even close to being done yet. Because there's still one main thing I want to show off, which was something for Ratchet Clank Future of Kraken, which is the Tetramite Nest. Where is the Tetramite Nest? Where is the Tetramite Nest? Because there's a mini game behind here that leads to some stuff that I think is cool. But Roxas doesn't remember where the Tetramite Nest is. Ugh. This is bad. This is destructible floor. That's the environment thing. I already went through that. There's also a section of here that I'm missing that I don't remember. See, I already went to this corner. There should have been a map for the Insomniac Museum, honestly. This place is large. I think this... Huh, I would have thought there would have been something right there. See, I'm looking for this. Ah, here it is. Okay, I was looking for this. This right here talks about Ratchet's model, I believe, if this is the one I'm thinking of. Proto Ratchet, yep. When we first started out on Ratchet Clank Future Tools of Destruction, we had a plan to use the console's processing power to create a more detailed model of Ratchet that would have more human facial features and expressions. We went with this concept for a while before thinking, you know what, that's not Ratchet anymore. The model was changed to a higher resolution version of the style of classic Ratchet. And I thank them for that. Oh, okay, so it was over here. This place is so big. Where is that Tetramite Nest? Like, seriously. Okay, we're gonna go back to the entrance real quick. There's another door down over this way. Oh, this is the men and ladies room. It's down here, I believe. Yes. Is it the Tetramite Nest? No. That's the Agorian thing again. Okay, here we have another thing where we can get more info. The kitchen! There's the Agorian's popcorn. Just sitting on the floor. Somebody just left that there. Okay, there should be a spot where Nefarious is. Where, like, it talks about... Here it is. This Clank conference room. Sci-fi B-style B-style. From pencil to computer. Animal influences. Fun factor. They're very expressive. More shiny. More shiny. We vastly improved how our surfaces handle lighting. Specular light, the shiny reflections from nearby lights, have a lot more detail and range of brightness and shadow. The tech team really pulled this one off. Now our scales can be slimier, our robots shinier, and our game look more polished all around. Which is true. This game looks gorgeous. Wait, the fun factor. Fun factor. And of course, let's not forget the fun factor of our characters. Often when a character's personality is described, we lean towards archetypal designs, which have been the staple for this franchise. Once in a while, we can take forms that are in direct opposition of a character's traits to allow the personality to be even more dramatic. Animal influences. Okay, I just want my info. I don't get how this is an animal influence for Dr. Nefarious. Okay, from pencil to computer. I think that's... Okay. All of these characters are described in a 3D world while still maintaining the qualities of a 2D world. Most of the deciding factors for having the clarity of a 2D design is whether the silhouettes are clear, whether the internal details are easy to parse visually both from afar and from a closer viewpoint, and if the overall mood or personality of the asset can be read accurately on the first read. One great aspect of these designs is seeing the opposition of forms between two related characters. Even with the contrast between the character maintaining a unified style with a look which keeps them grounded in the same world, or universe in Ratchet Clank Future's case. Sci-fi movie style. Dr. Nefarious and his gang of robots have invaded the Brigus star system, hoping to create a new dystopia where villains rule the universe. With him, Dr. Nefarious has brought a flair for the dramatic and the over-top B-movie designs. Dr. Nefarious and his robotic cohorts prefer presentation and dramatic flair over functionality and working designs, which can definitely be seen. That's the kitchen. Still looking for that Tetramite nest. Because I remember I used to get killed by the Tetramites all the time. I saw a Valkyrie, too. Ah, here it is. Here's the Valkyrie. Character texturing. The color data for a character should hold up as simple blocks of color from a distance on every asset. When too much grit or detail is added to the main forms of a character, as the character moves further from the camera, it becomes difficult to parse visually. An asset should have distinct first read and second read levels of detail. The different materials, glass, rubber, metal, skin, should be consistent throughout the entire game. These consistencies help unify the look of the universe and add a toy appeal of the franchise. It also helps to unify the entire character effort, making the game more polished. Stay away from too believable for a texture's surface. Photo reference and texture data can cause a break in style. Stylized and hand-designed surfaces are far more relative to the franchise. Interesting. Alright, we are almost an hour into this. Dear God. And there's one last thing I need to do, and that's find that stupid Tetramite nest. Like, where is that Tetramite nest? It should be by the Angela conference room. Interesting. That looks like Ratchet jumping over something on the grind boots. Pole moves. We always wanted to give Ratchet some more acrobatic moves to highlight the Lombax's animal nature. One idea was to give him a series of climbing and swinging moves to climb vertical and horizontal poles in the environment, pipes, scaffolding, etc. With the amount of custom animations required for what was basically a complex jumping puzzle, we decided to cut out Ratchet's pole moves. Oh darn, I wanted to see Ratchet rock that pole. Alright. Hail conference room. Procedural arena. The procedurally generated arena is a virtual set of platforming obstacles originally intended as one of the Battleplex lobby games. When activated, the generator would produce a series of platforms and hazards for Ratchet to traverse in a timed challenge. The player would also get a number for that challenge, and if they liked, they could enter the number into the generator to play it again. The number could also be sent to a friend and let them try it out. Ultimately, there were too many potential testing, lighting, and generating issues with the huge number of possible combinations, so we decided to cut the generator from the game. Interesting. Chimera conference room. What is this? This looks like a nefarious drone thing. Nefarious Destroyer. The Nefarious Destroyers were large versions of the common Nefarious fighter ships and would dock with the fighters to increase their strength and available moves. The Destroyer would launch a volley of Seekers and try to dock with a pair of bombers. If the bomber docking is successful, a wave of energy would build up along the edges of the ship and the hull and fire away from the ship, sending a crescent-shaped wall of energy towards the target. The Destroyer would then pull up and out of the fight, returning to the attack pool until the time came to make another pass. So this is a cut space thing. They really put a lot of detail into the space design for it. Procedurally generated. Petromite nest, where are you? Did I read this one? I think I did. Yes, level design. I already read that one. I think I read every single one in this room. So we're pretty much done, except for I still don't know where that Tetramite nest is. How annoying. But pretty much that's the Insomniac Museum. I did not think I was going to take an hour for this, but I shows what I know. Tetramite nest, I need you. Wherefore art thou? Because I remember you could go across the side right here, and then you could end up causing that thing to go away. Well, I think you get the idea of the Insomniac Museum and the things that were implemented into the game, not implemented into the game, things such as that. Still upset that I can't find that Tetramite nest, but anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna end it off right here. This has been Roxas1359, and I thank you all for watching Ratchet & Clank Future: A Crack in Time. Overall, final thoughts on this game? It's a great game, a little bit buggy. By a little bit, I mean really buggy. But overall, an enjoyable experience, especially if you played Ratchet & Clank Future: Tools of Destruction. This game has a lot to offer and is a lot of fun to play. And, again, I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.